Statcast from CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, hit the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
It's Jared Kelenic time. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, May 11th. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Only 5 games on the schedule Monday. So we'll get a little creative with it on today's podcast. We'll take a look at the state of fantasy baseball. Chris wrote a fantastic article, which is on the site right now. We'll have some fun with Statcast, some Monday standouts, some Team Name Tuesday. But of course, let's start with Jared Kelenic, one of the top prospects in baseball. He is a top 5 prospect, I would say, confidently, and arguably the number 2 hitting prospect behind Wander Franco. He is 81% rostered. According to Jeff Passan of ESPN, Kelenic is expected to be called up by the Mariners on Thursday. All right, guys. So, Scott, we'll start with you. What is your expectation for Jared Kelenic? How far have you moved him up in the rankings? Should we be trying to sell high? What do you think?
I don't think you should be trying to sell high because this is, I think, a very special talent. I think somebody who is just naturally gifted at baseball, makes everything look easy. The numbers from 2019 when he played in 3 different minor league spots were very good. They're kind of what took him from being a good prospect to one of the very best. I think there was a publication or two that even had him as the number 1 overall prospect entering this season ahead of Franco and some others who might have been in that discussion. And then, I mean, you look at just a little bit we've seen of him this year. He homered twice in AAA Tacoma's opening day, once off a left-hander, which was reportedly what the Mariners wanted to see him have success against in the minors, was left-handers. He struck out 1 time in 20 at-bats this spring, homering twice and doubling twice, and that was even with his spring being interrupted for a couple weeks by a groin injury, a grade 2 adductor strain. Didn't slow him down at all. He runs well. He works the count well, but he's not like overly patient. Like he knows how to do damage when he gets his pitch. And I think there's a good chance he contributes in all 5 categories from this point forward, and that he does the peripheral things that help him stand out in points leagues too. I think this is the prospect call-up who's going to have the biggest impact this year, even more than Franco. And I already, given the state of outfield right now, given the need for impact bats in fantasy baseball right now, I'm already moving him into my top 20 outfielders. Maybe I'll have to move him down because he ends up struggling right away. I just don't think, like, once you get to that 20 spot in the outfield rankings, everything behind that, I'm just not going to miss it that much. I don't feel like. So if it came down to it, I'd rather have Kelenic and see if he lives up to this best case outcome right away.
You mentioned the numbers back in 2019, Scott. I mean, they were phenomenal. It was a 291 batting average, 904 OPS, 23 homers, 20 steals. I moved Jared Kelenic up to outfielder 27 in Roto because I do think he is going to be more of a contributor across the board there, which the steals obviously will help, but I don't think he does anything wrong in points league. So I have him at outfield 30. I see what you're saying. I mean, there's a bunch of players in this mix, in this, honestly, 18 to 30-ish range, from Austin Meadows to Michael Conforto to Randy Arozarena, who have either been inconsistent or just underperformed so far this year. So look, if Jared Kelenic comes up first couple of weeks, he's mashing. I can easily see moving him up to that point very quickly as well. Chris, What would you like to add on Jared Kelenic, one of the top prospects in baseball? You hyped?
I'm very excited. I'm really glad he got that one plate appearance against the lefty so he could prove it. Really glad he got to work on his defense for 4 games. I mean, look, we knew he was going to get called up very soon. Their president, before getting fired, said that if he would accept a contract extension, they would call him up on opening day. So, like, we know they've thought he was ready. The Mariners PR team was putting out near daily videos about how good he was at summer camp last season. I think he probably could have just gotten called up back then if they had been competing for something. I think it's often helpful for, people who don't know much about prospects to try to give some like comparisons for players. And I think if you want like a most likely outcome, I think maybe like the good, healthy Tommy Pham years, where he's just like an all-around contributor, gets on base, steals some bases, hits for some power. Really good all-around hitter. I think if you're looking for like a ceiling comp, Francisco Lindor, like that kind of combination of contact skills, power, and stolen base potential, I think he could give you all of that. I think the best case scenario for Jared Kelenic is that he's a first round player moving forward. He is, and I like the Tommy Pham comparison just because like aesthetically it fits. They are both just absolute beefcakes. Like Jared Kelenic is just like super jacked. He's not quite Tyler O'Neill or Luke Voigt, I guess, but he is he's a big dude. Apparently he's put on like 30 pounds of muscle since he was drafted. But by all accounts, he can still play center field. He can still play it pretty well. He's still got good speed. He's very nearly the total package. I think if Wander Franco got called up, he would probably be ranked a little bit higher than Jared Kelenic, but that's not a knock on Kelenic, who is here now. And I have him 29th at outfield in both formats.
And for anyone who hears the Tommy Pham comp and they're like, ugh, Tommy Pham, just a reminder.
No, Tommy Pham is awesome.
He was great. I mean, Tommy Pham back in 2017, 306 batting average, 23 homers, 25 steals. So if we got anything close to that, even on a per game basis, the rest of the season for Jared Kelenic, that would be awesome. And then on the high end, Lindor, as you mentioned, maybe he gets to 30-20, something like that, 30-25 for Kelenic. So very excited there. Chris, would you be looking to sell high? Because a lot of people say, I mean, specifically in redraft leagues, dynasty keeper, I think you want to hold him, but there is no higher point of trade value than when a prospect is just called up.
Yeah, I mean, look, like we all would love to see every prospect hit the ground running. We're making, I said a most likely outcome is Tommy Pham. That's probably unfair. I think a most like Vladimir Guerrero is the best hitting prospect of a generation. And it took him until year 3 to really live up to expectations. So, obviously it could go wrong for Kelenic, but yeah, if you could get Christian Yelich for him right now, I think I would probably do that, even with the questions about Christian Yelich. If you could get Marcell Ozuna, if I could get Byron Buxton for him, I think I would probably do that.
Kyle Tucker is like the buy low.
Kyle Tucker, sure.
Okay.
There are others who like I still have Austin Meadows ranked 16th. I think I would have to do that, but that I would actually not feel great about. There are some red flags in Meadows' batted ball profile.
Meadows is actually who I have Kelenic one spot ahead of. Now, it sounds like I have Kelenic the highest of the three of us, but
yes, you definitely do.
And I was tempted to move Ozuna behind him too. I ultimately didn't, but I'm.
Ozuna and Meadows. There's. We'll get into this a little more in the State of Baseball piece that I wrote, but there was a Fangraphs piece from last week that basically highlighted that like the batted balls that have been most affected by the new ball and the higher exit velocity but lower average distance. specifically has been like batted balls hit with an average launch angle over 30 degrees, under 105 miles per hour. There's been a significant difference in the result on those batted balls. And Marcell Ozuna, Austin Meadows, and God, there's another guy. But Marcell Ozuna and Austin Meadows were among the league leaders in those types of batted balls, which, I guess could be a warning sign that they are, specifically going to be affected by this. I think Marcell Ozuna just hits the ball too well to really have that problem moving forward. But I'm definitely not 100%. Like, I wouldn't feel confident trading Kelenic for one of those guys.
And as the high guy on Austin Meadows coming into the season, Statcast kind of did this whole update where they changed some expected stats for players based on what you were just talking about, Chris. And Austin Meadows' expected stats went way down. So I think there is a little bit more cause for concern there. I wouldn't make that trade. And I was high on Meadows coming in. I would not trade Kelenic away for Austin Meadows in a redraft league right now, but we will talk about Meadows a little bit more in a bit as well. Jared Kelenic coming up this Thursday. Very exciting times, but let's talk about some standouts from Monday's action.
Oh my good gracious.
What do you got, Scott? Where do you want to start?
I want to start with the player who I have directly ahead of Kelenic in my outfield rankings, and that's Jared Walsh, who you keep expecting him to get worse, and yet somehow he keeps getting better. The game in Houston ended today. Walsh was on base 5 times. He went 4 for 4 with a walk. He hit his 7th home run. He hit his 6th double, even stole his second base. So it was a huge game for Jared Walsh. He's now batting .347 for the Angels. Now, interesting about that is, in the past when we've talked about Walsh, I've talked about, the strikeout rate that improved so much last September, because he was a guy who struck out a lot in the minors. He's not striking out that much this year either. Well, it's creeping up. It's creeping up. It's above 20% now, which is not a high strikeout rate, but it's getting close to kind of the breaking point of that, of being a high strikeout rate versus a not so high strikeout rate. His expected stats, 266 batting average, 458 slug, obviously much, much lower than his actual ones. And yet he's been one of the few awesome hitters in baseball this year. Right? There's how many hitters have been legitimately awesome this year?
So I'll just point out, in our Roto scoring formula, which is based on the 2019 run environment, 15 of the top 20 hitters overall heading into today's action were starting pitchers. 15 of the top 20 players, were starting pitchers. Only 5 of them were hitters. That's kind of sums it up.
Yeah. So he's actually producing, and outfield in particular, really outfield and first base, the 2 positions where he's eligible. There are very few players who are actually doing something for you.
Yeah.
I guess, like, if you want to put a positive spin on what his batting average should look like versus what it actually is, his fly ball rate is 31.4. It's not very high. He hits the ball on the ground a lot. He hits the line drives at a pretty good rate too. So both of those are going to yield higher batting average than fly balls will. And maybe it's better not to hit so many fly balls in this environment. Clearly his home run rate isn't suffering from not hitting many fly balls. So, I don't know that he can sustain a BABIP. I'm pretty confident he can't sustain a BABIP up around 400. I'm pretty confident he's not going to hit 347 all year. But if he hits between 280 and 300 with the kind of power he's shown, that's certainly something that you're going to be happy to put in your lineup every week. And given the state of outfield right now, I have him in my top 20 at that position as well. And we mentioned last week I have him in my top 10 at first base. I feel fine about it, even though, there are some obvious arguments to be made that he's overachieving.
For Jared Walsh, Scott, you touched on this, but his last 18 games coming into Monday, he had a 26% strikeout rate. So you're right, that is creeping up a little bit. And I also noticed he has struggled against lefties at a 612 OPS entering Monday night's action against left-handed pitching. So we say this a lot of times about sell high candidates. The emphasis is on the high, and a lot of people, I assume, got Jared Walsh as probably a bench bat coming into the season, and they're probably just, reaping the rewards now at whether it's first base or outfield. He has been great, but I think if you can sell high on him, I would. Would you guys trade Walsh for Luis Castillo if you can make that happen?
I would not.
I would.
I think I would.
I think Scott and I are going to have just whatever question it is about Luis Castillo. I will say yes. He will say no.
Maybe
assuming it's thinking highly of Luis Castillo.
Maybe wait until after Castillo starts in Coors Field, because the price might go down even more there. So
yeah, I moved I actually have an exact ranking for you now on Castillo. It was kind of hurried just so I could have Kelenic moved up in my rankings. I moved Castillo down to 34th at starting pitcher. So behind guys like Julio Arias, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, Bundy and Gosman, who we talked about yesterday. Yeah, that's where I am with Castillo right now.
All righty. Chris, oh my goodness gracious, from Monday.
Yeah, I'm just going to give up the ghost on Mitch Keller here. I said on yesterday's show he'd been alternating good and bad starts, and he was due for a bad start. The problem is, I think moving forward, he's probably due for more bad starts than good starts. 3 1/3, 7 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Just like technically has a 4-pitch arsenal, but I'm not sure he really has any pitches right now. He throws his fastball, but it's not good. His curveball and slider just haven't been what I hoped they would be. I still had hope. I'm officially giving up that hope. Hopefully this means that he does what Corey Kluber did when I officially gave up the hope and rattles off a couple of good starts and gives me a little more hope. But I'm giving up on Mitch Keller. I had kept him on my bench on a couple of leagues. He's gone. Wish he had started Sunday before waivers ran.
Mitch Keller is rostered in just 19% of CBS leagues, so probably the deepest ones out there, some dynasty leagues, some NL-only leagues as well. Probably want to hold on to him in those formats just in case, the off chance he gets traded. That's probably the best possible thing that could happen for Mitch Keller, though I can't see the Pirates getting up on him just yet. If you have him in any type of standard league, which I can't imagine you would, you can obviously get rid of Mitch Keller off of your fantasy team. For my, oh my goodness gracious, I want to talk about a pitcher's duel, which coming into the season, if I told you this was going to be a pitcher's duel, you probably would have laughed at me. Kyle Gibson going up against Alex Wood in San Francisco on Monday night. Kyle Gibson just keeps chugging along. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. He now has 7 straight quality starts. The ERA is down to 2.28. The whip is down to 1.04 for Kyle Gibson. And mention it every time he's out there. The inclusion of this cutter, which he doesn't really throw that much. It's like it fluctuates. I think it was today he threw it like 8-9% of the time. Sometimes he gets it up to 15%. But I think the inclusion of this cutter for Kyle Gibson has kind of helped everything else in his arsenal play up. So he's been great. Can't say anything bad about Kyle Gibson at this point. And then Alex Wood on the other side against the Rangers. 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. Starting to give you some volume now as well. 13 swinging strikes on 99 pitches, 2 earned runs or less in all 5 starts. Who do you guys have more confidence in moving forward? Because I think it's pretty close. I like both guys, Gibson or Alex Wood.
I think it's Wood.
I like Wood more. Like, I think Wood's more talented. I think Wood has the higher ceiling, but like he could just break, We've seen that from him so many times.
Yeah, but any pitcher could break. I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yes, but I mean, Kyle Gibson does have durability going for him, and Wood definitely doesn't. So if you're talking about trust, I would say I trust Gibson more, but I want Wood more because I'll, in all but the deepest of leagues, I'll usually shoot for the upside.
I do think Alex Wood will be better on a per inning basis, but I would agree that there's more injury risk there as well. So Kyle Gibson more likely to remain durable, but I think Wood will actually be better. If you guys, I guess if you had to sell one right now, try to sell high on one.
Gibson. I think you could sell higher on Gibson first of all.
Yeah.
And
Great.
yeah, that's the one I'd be looking to sell high on. I'm not as confident that he's all that now, Gibson, as I am Wood. I mean, the cutter argument, I've always liked that he gets a lot of swinging strikes on that slider. Obviously, it hasn't added up to more. Is introducing this cutter helped everything play up, like you said, Frank? I mean, that's the theory right now, but obviously it's not been tested for very long.
The thing for Gibson is so far he's been really good at limiting hard contact.
Yeah, he's got a 2.89 expected ERA according to Statcast.
305 expected WOBA on contact. That's really, really good. That's something Alex Wood's always been good at, and he's got like a 330 mark. So Kyle Gibson's been even better. The problem is that's never been something he's been good at. He's been like 360 to 400 x WOBA allowed. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, so he really does need to continue to be very, very good at that. Alex Wood has a history of that and gets strikeouts. So that's why I feel more confident in him. And like, yes, Wood can get hurt, but Gibson could just fall off. I think it's more likely Gibson just stops pitching well than Wood gets hurt necessarily.
Entering Monday, Kyle Gibson had a 13% swinging strike rate with a 52% ground ball rate. So some really nice underlying numbers.
Yeah.
But I would agree that Alex Wood, I think, is more likely to be a better pitcher moving forward. So if you could sell high on one or sell high on both, I think you should look into it. But Kyle Gibson is the one that I would rather sell there. Promote a few things here early on. Make sure to check out our Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter. You can find it at cbssports.com/newsletters. You can sign up for all of our newsletters there, but specifically Fantasy Football Today, which Chris writes, and Fantasy Baseball Today. Dan Schneier and myself, we tag team that bad boy, and we give you the latest news every morning, waiver wire options, trade targets, streamers for every single day, and it's 100% free. So go to cbssports.com/newsletters, just punch in your email address there, and you will begin receiving it. The link is also in the podcast description. And as always, if you enjoy the pod, please feel free to drop a 5-star Apple Podcast rating and leave a question in the review. We'll answer it on a future podcast. And speaking of questions, we are going to stick around a little bit tonight after we actually finish the podcast, and we'll answer some of your YouTube questions. So thank you to everyone out there supporting us night in and night out. We usually go live around midnight Eastern time, which is just crazy, but that's the nature of baseball in general. So we'll stick around here for 10 to 15 minutes after the podcast and answer some of your YouTube chat questions as well. Some news and notes. Jacob deGrom, an MRI revealed no structural issues or long-term concerns, though he will be placed on the 10-day IL on Tuesday with right side tightness. Seems like he's always kind of dealt with things similar to this the past couple of seasons, whether it's like a back or a neck thing or an oblique thing for Jacob deGrom. Even with that, since 2017, Jacob deGrom has the second most innings pitched in baseball. Overall, is this good news for Jacob deGrom? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it kind of played out how I was thinking it would yesterday. So I'm glad to hear it. I mean, obviously MRI didn't turn up anything major, and they're giving him a chance to rest, which is probably for the best if you want him to stay healthy for the majority of the season. So I think it's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Very nice. Yeah, we did have a grade the trade question from Jordan regarding Jacob deGrom. 12-team head-to-head points league just traded away Jack Flaherty and Huascar Ynoa for Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, I do that.
A B in a points league?
B+.
B+. All righty.
Is Ynoa RP eligible or no?
I don't
think so.
Yeah.
Like Ynoa, I think is a sell high candidate. You're getting Jacob deGrom back. I wish Jacob deGrom wasn't hurt. I feel probably a little less confident than Scott does right now, but it is certainly as positive news as you could hope for your number one starting pitcher going on the IL.
Cody Bellinger posted a video of him running sprints on Monday as he recovers from a hairline fracture in his left fibula. He remains without a timetable, but this is obviously a positive update there. CJ Crone was placed on the 10-day injured list with a lower back strain. Framber Valdez could throw a bullpen in Houston this week before beginning a rehab assignment in the near future. Some good news there on Framber Valdez. Keegan Aiken was recalled by the Orioles, but will fill a long relief role for the time being. The Rockies and Padres were postponed on Monday. The teams will play a doubleheader on Wednesday. Dinelson Lamet will start on Tuesday. A position eligibility note: Nick Senzel now has 6 games at second base. So if you only needed 5 to be eligible in your league, Nick Senzel will have second base eligibility. And if you need 10, he is working his way towards getting that. As long as Joey Votto is out, I think there's a good chance Nick Senzel will get that pretty soon. Some prospect updates. Well, I was going to let you know that Jared Kelenic was crushing it, but we already talked about him. So Marlins outfielder Jesus Sanchez has been very, very bad in the majors thus far, but a former, not top prospect, but
He's a top like 60, 70 guy.
Top-ish prospect. He is 15 for 27 with 3 home runs at AAA thus far. The Rays' Vidal Brujan is 10 for 22 with 4 home runs and 1 steal, which I find interesting because he was more of a speedster. That was basically his number one tool, was that he's fast. And now he's hitting home runs. So
I think this is the most he's ever hit at a single stop. No, he had 5 in 95 games in 2018. But he has 23 career home runs in 405 games. He has 4 in his first 6 this season. I don't know what ball they're using down in the minors. It's really awesome that these are things that we have to enter into our calculations, but I also don't think there's any ball that could, like, 4 home runs in 6 games isn't real, but it's not fake either. It doesn't necessarily mean he's having a power breakout, but he is super, super fast. The only concern, I guess, would be, would the Rays actually call him up before Franco if that came to it?
I picked him up in Tout Wars, which is a 15-team mixed league. Obviously, I couldn't pick up somebody like Franco. But I decided I'd rather have, based on this hot start and that it's at AAA, I'd rather have Brujan than somebody like Jeter Downs, who's not off to such a hot start, or I don't think Jaron Duran was an option. I think he was already rostered. But yeah, that's kind of the range I was thinking as for Brujan being a pickup. And I didn't get the impression from the scouting reports I had read that it was like a Nick Madrigal situation where they really don't see him developing power at all. Like they could see him being like a 12 to 15 homer guy in the majors, like, I don't know, Jose Reyes or Rafael Furcal or kind of that kind of profile for Vidal Brujan. But frankly, I'm never surprised when a hitter develops power. Like, it's just even with production going down, I mean, there's still this kind of baseline expectation that if you're an everyday player, you're going to hit 20 home runs, right?
Yeah,
I think that might be changing, but it is good to see that, like, he's always been a very good plate discipline guy. 193 walks, 200 strikeouts in his career. When you're a non-power threat, that can tend to disappear when you start climbing levels. So if he can be a 12 homer guy, I think that would help the plate discipline stick a little better. And he stole 55 bases in 122 games in 2018. He is really, really fast. I always, in my head, kind of group him with, is it Brian Edwards? Is that the other guy? The other middle infielder who's super fast? That they got?
No, Xavier Edwards.
Xavier Edwards, yeah. I always group them in my minds, and there's the famous Blake Snell quote about Xavier Edwards being a slap hitter. I don't know if Vidal Brujan may not have quite as little pop as him, and this is a good sign.
It's very likely those two do turn out similarly, but if I was going to make a distinction between them, even going into this year, I would have said Brujan slightly better power profile, Edwards slightly better on base profile.
All right. So Dal Brujan, and I think what helps him is that he's played both second base and every outfield spot so far in the minors. So definitely fits that Tampa Bay Rays mold of being a versatile player thus far. Brandon Lau, Austin Meadows, you guys are officially on watch because Vidal Brujan and Wander Franco are coming soon. The other one, Wander Franco, wanted to mention he's 7 for 23 thus far with 2 home runs and 1 steal at AAA. And Elliot Ramos for the San Francisco Giants is 9 for 21 with 2 home runs and 2 steals. He is at AA as of now. A few other standouts from Monday I just wanted to quickly mention. Scott, your boy, Tyler Naquin. Don't drop him yet. He's coming around. He started 8 straight games. He has 4 hits, including 2 home runs over his last 2 games, 57% rostered. And Nick Senzel is 2 for 5. He went 2 for 5 with a double and 2 RBI on Monday. Scott, who would you rather roster between those two, Tyler Naquin, Nick Senzel?
Haven't looked at Senzel in a while. He's been in and out of the lineup so much. I'm kind of just giving up on him till he gets hot.
The underlying numbers for Senzel are much better this year in terms of expected stats, and his plate discipline he's making a lot of contact this year.
Yeah, he is. So I think I'm going to say Senzel and just hope he stays put together at this point, though it does seem like Naquin's actually been the more consistent starter of them this year. That may be changed. I mean, we're seeing Senzel play the infield some. I was reading.
And the return of Akiyama, in the last couple of days, that does raise a few more outfield questions, I guess.
But I've seen one of the Reds beat writer tweeted out that Jesse Winker was taking ground balls at first base. Joey Votto is down, obviously. So I interpret that as with Votto being out, especially, they want to keep Naquin. They want to keep 4 outfielders in the lineup, basically, and whichever ones can play the infield will get to play it some.
Tyler Mahle, who started that game, was at the Pirates 5 1/3, 1 earned, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts, 13 swinging strikes on 96 pitches. His ERA is 3.00, but he has only gone more than 5 innings once in 7 tries. So Mahle, he struggled with control a little bit. It's been inconsistent for him. He's been good. He's been decent on a per inning basis, but just really not giving you a lot of volume there. Ryan Mountcastle, Chris, if he was dropped, should you be looking to add him? He is 57% rostered his last 15 games, a 308 batting average, 2 home runs, and 1 steal.
I think 57% rostered sounds about right. That's 5 outfielder leagues mostly. I don't know if he's ever going to be a 3 outfielder guy because he doesn't steal a lot of bases, and the strikeout rate just kind of makes it prohibitive to start him in a points league.
Yeah, 31% strikeout rate for Ryan Mountcastle, supported by a 19% swinging strike rate, which is 6th highest among qualified hitters. He didn't really strike out this much in the minors, so it's kind of weird that Ryan Mountcastle is striking out this much, but it's not great. Luis Garcia up against the Angels, 5 1/3, 3 earned, 7 strikeouts. Scotty has a 3.60 ERA, 1.07 whip. I know you like him, and he has SPARP eligibility. He's been very good, but I think there was an update recently that Jake Odorizzi could be on a rehab assignment soon, and Framber Valdez. This is probably bad news for Garcia, right?
Yeah. I mean, provided nobody else goes down between now and then, which, a lot of times these problems solve themselves in that way. I would imagine as things stand right now, Garcia would be the first one out. Yeah. Should somebody be ready to take his place, but look, he's in line for another start this week. I imagine he'll still have a spot next week. And I don't know. Maybe after the 2-start week, you drop him if you need a roster spot to play with. But this first start, getting 7 strikeouts out of him with the hope of another start next time out, fell short of a quality start. But I think it's a good start to the 2-start week for him.
Jose Altuve has 5 straight multi-hit games, and just like that, he is batting .294. Luke Weaver up against the Marlins, 6 1/3 shutout, 4 hits, and 6 strikeouts. The ERA is down to 5.00. He's 22% rostered. Chris, anything to see here, or just dominated the Marlins?
There are a lot of guys in like the 80 range at starting pitcher, and I think Luke Weaver's one of them. And occasionally those guys take a big step forward and, join the 50 range. But, he's got to show more than that before he's anything more than a streamer.
Let's take a quick break, but when we return, we will hit the state of fantasy baseball. We'll do that next here on Fantasy Baseball Today. So Chris wrote an awesome article on the site right now. You can find it cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball. And you pointed out, Chris, that this is the year of the pitcher. There are currently 45 pitchers who have thrown at least 30 innings with an ERA below 3.50 and 30 with an ERA below 3.00. At the same point in the league calendar in 2019, that was 39, so 6 less in 2019. And then that was under 3.50. And then 20 who had an ERA below 3, so 10 less there. And you go on to point out that only 90 pitchers this season have thrown more than 30 innings.
Yeah, because the minimum qualifier there was 30 innings to this point of the season.
And that was compared to 119 at the same point back in 2019. So I guess my question for you is, while pitching on a per inning basis is way better this year, the numbers bear that out. There's no denying it. The volume is way down. So you point out in the article that you should be trading pitching, but with volume being down as much as it is, I'm wondering if you should actually do that. What do you think?
I'm not saying you definitely should be trading pitching, because look, ultimately, like when I pointed out earlier that 15 out of the top 20 players in the roto scoring formula are starting pitchers. Well, that doesn't actually mean that 15 of the 20 best players this season have been pitchers. That just means that based on last year's run environment, they have been. Based on this year's run environment, a 3.00 ERA pitcher is good, but it's not elite. That's been an elite mark in recent years. This year, it's a top 30 starting pitcher or something around there. So, everybody's dealing with lower volume. There may be some teams that can, consistently roll out 5-6 guys on their fantasy roster who go 6 innings consistently. But I think more than ever, like Tyler Mahle not going 5 innings, only going 5 innings more than once in 7 tries, that still makes him a top 40 starting pitcher for me. Just because, there aren't that many guys. I think you can give the guys who do get that extra inning boost an edge. But, I think one of the things to take away from this is we've talked about how many more good starting pitchers there are this season. It's all relative. Because a guy who we might look at a guy who has a 3.75 ERA and a K per 9 right now and say, well, he's a pretty good pitcher. That's actually kind of a below average fantasy pitcher so far this season, which sounds insane, but it's true based on the way this season has gone. If you compare it to, I looked at NFC main events just because it's 45 or 50 leagues that are, the data is public available. It was easy to pull. The average first place team right now has a 2.82 ERA. The average 10th place team, these are 15 team leagues. So the average 10th place team has a 3.63 ERA. If your team has a 3.63 ERA in a 15 team league right now, you're in 10th place in ERA.
It's just crazy. That's just
in 2019.
It's crazy to hear it out loud.
In 2019, the average first place team had a 3.57 ERA.
Yep.
That's how much things have changed over the last couple of seasons. And so you just have to keep that in mind when you're looking at valuing players and how to, how to value guys moving forward, how to value guys in trade. And it might make it so that pitchers can be overvalued in trades. That's not to say like a 2 ERA pitcher is always going to be good. John Means, if you think he's going to be really, really good moving forward, I don't necessarily think you need to trade him. But if you think John Means is more of a 3.5 ERA guy, you might be able to convince someone that that's a borderline ace in an era where it really wouldn't be. So I think, part of the article was just pointing out that, hey, things have changed so much, maybe not everyone's aware of it.
Scott, where do you think things go from here? Because obviously we've mentioned this a few times that the league batting average is 234, strikeout rate is at an all-time high. But with that means, as Chris pointed out, you need more pitching to compete in those categories. I would assume that there's going to be regression coming, just natural regression, because guys like Carlos Rodon are not going to pitch to a sub-1 ERA, and Kyle Gibson is not going to pitch to a sub-3 ERA all year, and Alex Wood's not going to pitch to a sub-2 ERA. So would you be looking to sell these starting pitchers? I mean, those are just a few names. Trevor Rogers comes to mind, Kevin Gausman, Sean Manaea, Tyler Mahle, even, to buy those hitters with proven track records that are off to slow starts just because things are going to even out. And I assume, like, as the weather heats up, like, the ball's probably going to fly a little bit more as well. So where do you think we go from here?
Well, I'm reluctant to really act on this info right now, which I understand could keep me in a hole if I'm in a hole. But I'd just be afraid of overreacting and shooting myself in the foot. I mean, it's kind of what I was saying about Jared Walsh, but applied to the whole league. It's what standard of hitter is actually trustworthy right now, and would you give up a quality arm for them? It does seem like there are more quality arms, certainly more usable arms than the past couple years than I was expecting coming into the year. For pitching to have improved on the whole, I feel like that would be applied more evenly than it has, and right now you get there's kind of an inversion where some of the guys you mentioned, Frank, who nobody expected anything from or not much of anything coming in, are standing out beyond some of the more proven types at the position. And so, like that, I don't even if some of these like league-wide trends remain, that inversion doesn't seem like it's going to be lasting all year. So I'm still having a hard time knowing precisely which pitchers I can trust and precisely which hitters I can trust. I don't know if I explained that very well.
Well, to me, that kind of makes it sound like you should be trying to sell high on the Carlos's Rodon and Sean's Manaea.
Yeah, but for whom? Like, what hitters? Like, the reason I have Jared Walsh as a top 20 outfielder right now, even though I pointed out, okay, so there are some signs here that maybe he can't sustain that, is just because, like, nobody else is good enough to rank ahead of that, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think it's like Lourdes Gurriel has been awful.
mhm.
I would trade Carlos Rodon for Lourdes Gurriel because I believe Lourdes Gurriel will be a very good hitter moving forward. I think Rodon has innings limitation concerns that are very real. I think injury risk is obviously a big concern with him, given that he's had Tommy John and shoulder surgeries in the past. And he's just not going to be this good forever. He's going to be good, but most of his career has been defined by kind of disappointing. So I think that's a perfect spot to.
I think I'm sure you have Carlos Rodon in a few leagues. I think you could go out right now and make that offer in every single one of your leagues, and that deal would go through.
Let's do it, man. I need outfielders.
I think it would. Like, to me, that's like, dang, you're underselling Carlos Rodon there. But I guess that's what I'm getting at is, like, I think Lourdes Gurriel is going to bounce back, but, like, right now he should not cost you Carlos Rodon.
I agree with that, Chris. I agree with that, Scott. And I would shoot for higher. I would shoot for much. Like, I would not be surprised if you could turn Rodon into Marcell Ozuna right now.
Yeah.
Or Kyle Tucker, which
Sure. I would love to do those as well.
But
it's unrealistic coming into the season based on, where each person was drafted. But even
then I'd hesitate because I don't really know who Marcell Ozuna is. I definitely don't know who he is in this new environment. And, like, it's just so home run heavy because the home run rate is still pretty good across the league. It's like 2018.
It's down from, it's the 5th highest home run per 9 ever, but it's down from 2019 and 2020.
What really stands out to me, and I didn't dig deep into the numbers for as long as Chris did earlier today when he was writing that article, but 283 BABIP league wide.
Yeah.
283 BABIP. It's pretty much always between 295 and 300, and it's 283 right now.
Yeah, it's been
what the heck?
There's been a decline over the last couple of years. I think it was like 290 last year, maybe a little lower.
Yeah, and obviously that was
like
a weird
I
season,
think
but
I think what we're seeing right now is just it's a confluence of events that have made hitting and both in terms I specifically batting average I think is the main thing that has been victimized, has made it much harder to do. You have a league record high strikeout rate, which coincides with an increase in average fastball velocity for the 16th season in a row.
And I get
continued
that,
career or league-wide lows in fastball usage.
But what would explain the
shifting,
BABIP? Like, is everybody just gotten better at playing defense?
Increased shifting, and I think the two biggest things
that much higher this year compared to the previous few years?
I think there's two things. It's increased shifting, which has just been an ongoing trend. I think the thing this year, and that would be the next thing that we'd want to talk about from this piece, would just be the new ball and the effects that is having both on. It's amazing. Major League Baseball seems to have created the worst of all worlds with the new baseball, because it's easier to throw harder and it moves more out of a pitcher's hand because it's a lighter baseball, and it gets hit harder but doesn't travel as far. And so what you've seen is a lot of, I mentioned earlier that 30-degree launch angle below 105 miles per hour. Last season, this was just in April, and this is from that Fangraphs piece. It was something like 45% of those batted balls were home runs and like 30% of them were outs. This year, 45% of them are outs, 30% are home runs. So it's not even like home runs are turning into doubles. Home runs are mostly just turning into outs so far. And I think that's probably helping drive BABIP down further than where it's been. And
well, is this kind
batting average is lower than it ever has been.
Is this go ahead. Is this kind of the comeuppance to the fly ball revolution? Because if it's getting hit harder but not traveling as far, that would seem like it would benefit ground balls,
maybe,
and ruin fly balls. Like non-home run fly balls are just I don't know. What's the batting average on fly balls versus ground balls, and is that out of
It depends on whether, if you include home runs, then the batting average, I think, on both is pretty similar. BABIP on fly balls is obviously lower, but that's because home runs don't count as balls in play. I think part of the problem is ground balls, in theory, in that environment should be more valuable than they would be otherwise. But with the increase of shifting, I think that is also taking that away. And so you see a lot of teams are doing a left-handed or Ted Williams shift on right-handed hitters now. Like Giancarlo Stanton gets played that way a lot. I just saw it while I was watching, I think, the Marlins and Diamondbacks game against Jesus Aguilar. And so it's just part of the problem is when there are more strikeouts, even if home runs don't travel as far as they did or home runs happen less often, it still incentivizes teams to play for home runs when strikeout rate is that low, because 1 out of every 4 plate appearances ends with a strikeout now. You can't string together enough hits to score without hitting home runs. This is a confluence of long-term and short-term trends that have created a league that is increasingly reliant on home runs, even if, like we're seeing this year, home runs don't happen as often. And I think that's bad for baseball. I think it makes for a really weird fantasy environment. And I think it does make for more of a gap between the haves and have-nots at hitter. I think, your Giancarlo Stantons don't seem particularly affected by this new baseball.
I think it's been reduced at pitcher because it had been huge at pitcher the past couple of years. It's widened at hitter so that you see that similar effect at hitter, the gap between the haves and have-nots that you've seen for pitcher the past few years. But I feel like it's gotten, I feel like the amount that it's widened at hitter isn't nearly as much as it's decreased at pitcher. I feel like there are more usable pitchers now, but there's still a point of no return at pitcher where if you mess with a pitcher beyond this point, you're just, you're going to kill yourself by doing that. So, and we haven't really seen attrition kick in at pitcher yet. There have been some injuries, but there haven't been, there are a lot more to come. And once those kick in, then you're going to see what feels like a surplus now. Maybe it won't feel like one for much longer. But
obviously, we've seen a ton of injuries at hitter, which historically injuries affect pitchers more often.
Mhm.
This year it's been kind of inverse, although there have been plenty of pitcher injuries too. So some of these things will iron out or even out, but I think you also do have to recalibrate your expectations. And like a 255 batting average is actively helpful at this point.
It's true.
Like that is, if a guy is hitting 260, he is helping your team batting average right now, because the average 5th place team in NFC leagues right now in 15 team leagues is hitting 254, which is down from 257 last year and 266 in 2019. So it's a weird environment for fantasy baseball right now.
The last few points I wanted to make on the ball, I feel like I saw this in spring where they said they could see the ball being affected 8 to 10 feet on a fly ball with the same launch angles, same average exit velocity from years past to this year. And if you think about 8 feet, that kind of sounds like it would be the difference between some of those wall scraper home runs turning into fly balls on the warning track, which would also explain batting average and BABIP being down, because those fly balls are not going over the wall anymore. They're turning into not lazy fly balls, but essentially, kind of, if teams are playing you deeper in the outfield anyway. So that all kind of explains that. I did want to get into some Statcast fun. We don't really have much time left, but let's talk about a few players that I think are underachieving right now in terms of expected weighted on base average, according to Statcast, which takes into account quality of contact plus walks plus strikeouts. So basically your plate discipline and your quality of contact. And a few names that all rank inside the top 20 right now in terms of the biggest underachievers in baseball in that category. Dominic Smith is the 4th biggest, Kyle Tucker, the 11th, Alec Boehm, the 12th, Gary Sanchez, the 16th, and Yasmani Grandal, the 20th. So 5 names that, I mean, Boehm isn't really hurting you that much, but the other 4, they're kind of hurting you right now. So who of that group would you want to buy? Are you most confident in bouncing back?
Tucker, who we mention all the time when we talk about buy lows.
Yep.
I feel like I've mentioned Dominic Smith a lot. I'm just kind of waiting for it to come to fruition, but everything in the underlying numbers say that he should be a lot better than what he's done thus far.
Yeah, and somebody dropped him in one of my shallower leagues. I picked him up. I don't know. I mean, part of the thing, I think he's only started against one left-hander this year. The Mets have faced so few left-handers, but I wonder about that too, particularly since he's not hitting well, if it could become a playing time issue, holding him back on top of everything else. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence in any of these guys, even Boehm really. Tucker's the only one I do, but in the right league, obviously, I'd buy on any of them being better than they've been so far, just not necessarily good enough that you're going to regret giving them up, I guess.
Yeah, there are a few factors that can particularly contribute to a player underperforming their ex-WOBA. I think one thing is that this year, while they have recalibrated, there is still an 11-point gap between league-wide ex-WOBA and league-wide WOBA. 0.011. Last year was 0.001. So, that's not a huge difference, but it's not nothing. So you do have to take it with at least a little bit of grain of salt. But then, I think the factors that you can take into account that might lead players to underperform would be, one, left-handed hitters who are pull prone on the ground makes them more shiftable. I think all hitters now who are more pull prone on the ground, generally speaking, can fall into that category. And players who are especially slow. This is something that, like, Miguel Cabrera has actually had really good expected numbers the last couple of seasons, but because he's so slow, defenses can play him so deep in the infield, and it's just going to kill his BABIP on those grounders. So it seems Dominic Smith is 21st percentile sprint speed. He is left-handed. He's struggling when the shift is on this year. He's being shifted a little more often. I think he will be better moving forward, but I think the 900 OPS guy we thought he was in 2019 and 2020, even adjusting for the new lower standards, I think he's probably more like an 800s OPS guy.
It seems like Gary Sanchez and Yasmani Grandal would fit that mold as well, Chris, as just guys that are super slow, obviously. So I think that makes sense. On the super high end, look, you're not going to be able to get Freddie Freeman for cheap, but a few people have emailed in saying, oh, what's going on with Freddie Freeman? He's batting .217. He's got a .295 expected batting average. He's slugging .467 with a .572 expected slug. So better days coming for Freddie Freeman. A few of the biggest overachievers in terms of expected weighted on base average thus far. Randy Arozarena, the 9th biggest overachiever. He currently has a 33% strikeout rate and a 62% ground ball rate. Dylan Carlson is 23rd in this category. Tim Anderson, I was surprised to see. He is 25th in terms of the biggest overachiever in expected weighted on base average. Where do you guys think Arozarena goes from here? He's such a weird player to figure out because we had such a small sample size last year, and he's great in the postseason against some of the best pitchers. But if the strikeout rate and ground ball rates come closer to where he's been at in his minor league career and where he was at last year, then this could actually he might get better. But if they stay this way, the numbers might actually go towards what they're expected to be. So what do you guys think about Arozarena in particular?
Yeah,
I'm still a little optimistic. I just think he's got such a talented bat. The ground ball rate is obviously concerning, but that does seem like the kind of thing that he could just adjust to and, get back to a 50% ground ball rate. And I think he'll kind of take off. It's interesting. He is just spraying the ball all over the field right now. His pull rate is down to 33%. He's hitting it straight away 47% of the time. So, that can make your BABIP overperform a little bit, especially with his speed. So, it's possible that he's not overperforming quite as much as it seems, but he needs to hit better moving forward. There's no question about that. And I'm willing to bet that he probably will hit better than he has.
A few pitchers who I found in this category, in terms of expected ERA in particular, which takes quality of contact allowed into account. The biggest underachievers, aka players that you should look to buy: Jesus Luzardo, who you'll probably get for dirt cheap because he's on the IL right now; Jamison Tyone, who we've spoken up as someone who you can buy before people realize this; Dylan Bundy, we spoke about yesterday; Griffin Canning is 28th in this category; Luis Castillo, though his expected ERA is not great. It's like 4.4 something. He's just so high because his actual ERA is over 6. So they are saying he has been a little bit unlucky in that category. And then some of the biggest overachievers in terms of quality of contact so far this season: Huascar Ynoa, Michael Pineda, and Marcus Stroman. So those are some of the names. Chris, let me know if you agree with this, where when you're talking about trying to sell them for hitters that I think are going to bounce back, the Charlie Blackmons, Anthony Rizzo, Paul Goldschmidt, they're boring, but they have proven track records, and I think they will be better. If I can trade Ynoa or Pineda or Stroman for someone like that, that's what I would be looking to do.
Yeah, I think Ynoa is one of the more obvious sell high candidates as starting pitcher right now. I think he's been, very impressive. I think there's a lot to like about him, but he has not gotten punished for his mistakes as often as he probably should have. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Dinelson Lamet. He is throwing actually a lot, 46% slider rate, getting a ton of whiffs on it. The fastball, not quite as good. The results haven't been bad so far, but he's the kind of guy who, when he gets a strikeout, things look great. He doesn't allow a hit. When he doesn't get a strikeout, the ball tends to get hit really, really, really hard. And so I just think worse days are ahead, and actually that kind of pitcher tends to underperform their peripherals more than they tend to overperform. So I think moving forward, he's probably more like a 4.5 ERA guy than even a 4 ERA guy.
I did have some bullpen updates from Monday that I wanted to get to. Should have mentioned these earlier, but for the Orioles, Cesar Valdez got his 8th save of the season. He has a 1.23 ERA. He has been great. Jake McGee picked up his 9th save of the season for the Giants, with Tyler Rogers being used in the 8th inning. Joakim Soria for the Diamondbacks was pitching in the 8th in a 5-zip game. He allowed 2 runs. Stephon Crichton came on in the 9th for his 4th save of the season. So it seems like that's the formula for now. Crichton will remain the closer for the Diamondbacks, even with Joakim Soria back. Raisel Iglesias picked up his 5th save, I believe it is, for the Angels, and for the 6th save for the Reds. Amir Garrett recorded 5 outs across the 7th and 8th inning in a blowout. He allowed 1 hit and 1 walk. I feel like we still have no clue who is going to get the next save for the Reds.
No, but Doolittle hasn't worked in a long time, and they haven't had a save opportunity in a long time. So I don't know. Maybe just a coincidence.
Interesting. The Reds and the Royals, man, have been, two of the tougher ones to figure out so far this season. To stream or not to stream for Tuesday, Logan Webb versus the Rangers, Adbert Alzolay at Cleveland, JT Brubaker versus the Reds, Brady Singer at the Tigers, Kwang Hyun Kim at the Brewers, and Jordan Montgomery at the Rays.
Alzolay, Singer, and Montgomery.
Yep. No, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
For Wednesday, not the greatest group. Matt Harvey, revenge at the Mets. Zach Davies at Cleveland. Casey Mize versus the Royals. John Gant at the Brewers. Andrew Heaney at the Astros. And Jay Happ at the White Sox.
I mean, realistically, the only one I'd even think about is Heaney at Houston, and obviously that's a tough matchup. So, if strikeouts and wins are what you're chasing there, fine. But if ERA and WHIP you're looking to preserve, maybe not.
I could see Davies and Gant having good games.
Yeah, I could see it, but do I want to gamble on it?
I would say it's 45% that they have
Okay.
good games, 38% that they don't, 12%.
I think those are pretty good odds you're giving them. I would not agree on those odds, but fair enough.
John Gant, number 1 fan. Chris Towers. I feel like whenever I bring up
He's
John
not
Gant,
bad. He's got a pretty good career ERA.
but man, he
Got
does
a
it,
3.64 ERA, guys.
does it with some really, really questionable underlying numbers.
You have questionable underlying numbers.
I'm sure I do. Some team name
Leave John Gant alone.
Team name Tuesday from Paul. Bets you Doolittle. Maybe they're saying, is that what?
I bet you do little.
Oh, all right. I thought there was something
Like Mookie Betts, you Darvish, and Sean Doolittle.
Sure. From Dan, Kirilov Ice.
Yep.
From Luis, may the dust in you be. May the dust in you be.
Is this a thing?
Well, what is Dust anyway? There's no player named Dust.
Dustin May? Because there's may the dust in you be. Dustin May, I don't know. From Chris, need an arc? Enoa guy.
That's very good.
From Steven, Coors against humidity.
Sure.
Strawberry Fields forever.
Yes,
From Pat, Madrigal Carpenter ride.
definitely.
From Charles, Fielder on the roof.
Yep.
From Kevin, The Golden Guriels starring Ryu McClanahan.
That is excellent. That is phenomenal.
Crone Temple Pilots.
Yep.
Big Bad Badoo Daddy.
I'm always going to be here for any reference to the 90s swing dance craze. Big Bag Voodoo Daddies.
Jagged Little Pilar.
Excellent. Yes.
From Finn, John means business.
Sure.
Urshela's Unfortunate Coals.
Maybe.
Kelenic Scope.
Sure.
Kelenic Scope. You're a wizard, Harry. I did not get these, but I'm sure you guys do. From Jack.
Harry Potter.
No,
You're
no,
a
no.
wizard, Harry.
I know. I know. I was talking about the upcoming ones. From Jack. Cold saucer of milk.
You're a cold saucer of milk
Yeah,
for
it's
like a
just-
kitty.
It's just
all right.
describing an object.
Cold
It's like
flying,
a Wheel of Fortune clue.
cold flying saucer.
I don't get that one. Like flying saucer would maybe, but like a cold flying saucer, I don't get.
Yeah.
Why would they be cold? Maybe they use cold fusion as a form of propulsion.
From Cody. Plead the fifth.
Yep.
Creatures of Babbitt.
That's very good.
From Matt. Sean Murphy Bunting.
Yep.
From Tim. This one's for Scott. The Professor and the Great Antone.
I don't know that I get it.
I think
get
it was from the Prestige they wrote in. Professor.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Those were kind of the magician names they were going by. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the reference to my favorite movie.
The Professor is apparently Kyle Hendricks. That's his nickname, referring to the Prestige characters. All right. If you are here watching on YouTube, stick around. We'll answer some of your questions on the podcast side. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye. All right, YouTube audience. We are here together for some very late night action, obviously, here. So we will throw some questions in here in the YouTube chat, and we will answer them. Jack Boyce, who sent those Team Name Tuesdays in, actually is here. He's hanging out.
I just want to, like, if we're doing I'm just thinking team names now because this is what I do after these segments. I wish Ned Yost was hired as the manager for the Rays, so I could do not all who wander are Yost.
Okay, it's pretty good. All right, we're getting some questions here from the Joker Jokic. Would Snell and Wilson Contreras be a fair trade for Chris Bryant?
Fair,
Seems fair.
And what I'd make, because I'm down on Snell at this point.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're trading out of a scarce position at catcher.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Catcher for arguably one of the top 20 best hitters in fantasy baseball right now. So
is Wilson Contreras is replacing him with, I don't know,
Tucker
Dom
Barnhart?
Nunez? That's always the example, right? Is making that change at catcher really going to change your team's fate? I don't think so.
All right, these guys would do it. I don't think that I would. This next one's from Cody Morris. 10-team points league. Should I take this trade? Ian Anderson and Ryan Presley for Joe Musgrove and Kenley Jansen. My other closers are Hader and Iglesias. Trade.
I don't see the point.
I think Joe Musgrove
I think
will be better than Ian Anderson.
Yeah, I have Musgrove a little higher than Anderson, and I think I have Presley a little lower than Jansen, but they're like, I think Jansen and Presley are like 2 spots apart in my rankings, and Musgrove and Anderson are like 4.
Yeah.
So it's just I never love making the challenge trade when you're just moving players from the same positions, just because at some point, this is kind of what I was talking about on Sunday about how I'm like struggling with my pitcher rankings and like the 18 to 40 range. I don't necessarily know if there's that much of a difference between Musgrove and Anderson, and it's pretty close to a coin flip probably.
Yeah, I mean, Musgrove's further ahead for me. I think the volume is really the fact that Anderson, I just don't know that he's going to be able to take on a full workload as a rookie technically. So yeah, I think I'd do it. Obviously, it would have been easier to do 3 starts ago when Musgrove's numbers looked even better.
Trade Yu Darvish for Freddie Freeman.
It just totally depends what you need.
I think it's a fair trade.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they're close. I had Freeman ahead of Darvish before the season, but it was very close. But if assuming you need hitting, and you probably do, I'm fine with it.
I think it's easier to pull off if you're in a shallower league too. Like if you're in a 10-team league, I feel like you can find pitching on the waiver wire. Basically, what we talked about all podcast. Just a lot of people,
but not Darvish level pitching.
Oh no, of course not. No.
That's a class of pitcher that very few can come close to.
Worryometer on Lucas Giolito, who currently has a 4.54 ERA, but a 3.57 xFIP and a 4.55 expected ERA. So he is giving up some loud contact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't really noticed any red flags. I know the whiff rate was down in his last start, but that hasn't been a long-standing or a multi-start trend for him. So I'm not really worried. Yeah.
The swinging strike rate is down about 3%. He's walking a few more this year, giving up a lot of line drives.
It just, all the numbers are kind of like, if he had like 2 fewer walks over 7 starts, he would probably have a better walk rate than he did last season. So it just, there doesn't seem to be anything there.
This next one, Austin Nola. I'm going to assume that's William Contreras or Omar Narvaez.
Well, Narvaez when he comes back, which sounds
Narvaez
like it won't be far off. I'd probably go Contreras over Nola, though, if I was faced with that choice.
All right. This one's from Winston Ramsey. What to do with pitcher Ohtani?
Probably just sit on him.
I would not start him against the Astros tomorrow. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he could hurt your whip. He's such an interesting pitcher because he doesn't allow any hits, but he walks everybody and he strikes everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable using him until he showed some improvement with the walks.
yeah. If you can find someone that just wants to trade for him because his name is Ohtani and I don't know, they're attracted to that, then yeah, I have no problem trading away the pitcher Ohtani, but don't start him for now. Should I pick up Kikuchi for 2 starts next week? I have no idea what the matchups are.
I don't know what the matchups are, but I would like Kikuchi on my team. He's good.
Kelenic and Yu Darvish for Jacob deGrom.
I don't think I would.
Seems like a lot. I mean, deGrom's the best pitcher in baseball when he's healthy, but
he's currently not.
Yu Darvish is 3 or 4 spots.
If it was like a 10-team league and I had a great outfield already, if it was a 12-team league and I had a great outfield already, you kind of have to make these lopsided consolidate for the very best player kind of trades to really stand out the shallower the league gets. So that's just the kind of trades you have to do. So I could see it in that context.
What sort of hitters could I get for Huascar Ynoa in a head-to-head points league? I'm gonna keep going back to those kind of just boring guys, but if you can get Anthony Rizzo, I don't know if that's realistic. I mean, if you have to throw in another player with Ynoa, I would try for it. Charlie Blackmon, Matt Chapman kind of comes to mind as a
Paul Goldschmidt.
He'll get on track at some point kind of guy. Would you do it for Eugenio Suarez in a points league? He strikes out so much.
Yes, I would.
I've just lost all confidence in these hitters. I'm going to be honest.
You just think every hitter with a track record that's bad this year is just going to remain bad forever, Scott?
No, I just don't trust myself to pick out the ones who won't. I'm not saying like I could give up, and not be heartbroken over it. I just don't know. Yeah, I mean, you could try for any of those guys. I just don't know that it's for sure going to solve your problem. Kyle Tucker's always the answer.
Can I finally drop Eugenio Suarez, who did hit a home run on Monday? It was his 6th home run of the season. He is batting 134.
I think a points league, and unless it's just an unusually deep points league, it's totally fine. Like Roto League with the big lineups, I can't see doing in that. But in leagues where it's hard to carry any bench hitters, I don't think you have to keep them on your bench.
Oh man, there are a lot of questions here. I want to sell high on Trevor Rogers, and I'm lacking in wins. Who's a pitcher that I can try to trade him for? I already have Luis Castillo, so I can't buy low on him.
Let me pull up my rankings and look for pitchers. Okay. Well, I guess Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez, who I have both ranked higher than Trevor Rogers, probably aren't going to get too many more wins than him. Kevin Gausman, Sonny Gray.
Would you do it for Greinke, who's been struggling?
Yes, I still have Greinke ahead of him.
Would you do it for Dylan Bundy?
Yes, I would do it for Kyle Hendricks.
Would you do it for Kenta Maeda?
Yes, Max Fried. I would do it.
I think all of those are pretty good options to get for Trevor Rogers right now, and pretty realistic too.
I don't know that I'd do any of them, but
well, feel free to jump in, Scott, and tell us you're wrong. Would you trade Huascar Ynoa for Jazz Chisholm? Ty France is my second baseman. Head-to-head categories.
Yeah, if you could do that, great. I'd be surprised if you could, but absolutely, he's going to be back soon.
Next one. I have Gavin Lux in Dynasty. What do I do? Hold? If I want to trade, what is an appropriate player to look for? Always tougher to answer on the spot, especially in a Dynasty league. I mean, there's just so many different routes you can go down. I feel like the answer is to not sell low on him, but we're kind of getting to the point with Gavin Lux where, like, if he doesn't start to show something that his, prospect pedigree is only going to take him so far. So,
yep.
Would you hold, or would you just try and sell?
Well, I don't think there's any.
I don't think you can trade him for much.
Right.
I guess in Dynasty you probably could, but I don't know. He
nearly
does
as
seem
much as you could have.
no, but he does seem like the kind of guy who, like, his value could collapse if he keeps struggling. So I do think this would be a good time to try to get something for him, even if it's not necessarily a difference maker. Who that player actually is, I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize.
We'll get to a few others here. We'll wrap up, but can you please rank my terrible first base options? Where CJ Cron's hurt, so forget about him. Dom Smith, Ryan Mountcastle, Josh Bell, and Brandon Belt.
I mean, I wouldn't want to forget about Cron given those other options that you have, because when Cron comes back, I think he's clearly the best. The one I'd be most likely to start right now is Brandon Belt, actually.
I actually had like a guess who, just blind numbers on him. He ranks very highly in a lot of Statcast categories. 13th in hard hit rate, 10th in barrels per plate appearance, 7th in average exit velocity on fly balls and line drives. So
and his home numbers have been good again, and he's been heating up lately. And I still think if you're talking rest of season, I'd rank Dom Smith and Josh Bell ahead of Belt, but I don't feel like you can start either of those two right now.
Should I drop Ohtani, pitcher only, for Charlie Morton or Freddie Peralta? I would do it for either, and I would do it for Charlie Morton first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got Kyle Hendricks and Luis Castillo and don't know what to do. Hold whether the score bench him for now. Yeah. Do not play Castillo at Colorado. Hey guys, someone dropped Kenta Maeda in my league. Should I get him? What do you think about his matchup for tomorrow? It's a points league. The Twins are going up against.
Yes, you should add Kenta Maeda. I don't really care who he's going up against tomorrow, but the White Sox are not a bad matchup anymore. So yes, go get Kenta Maeda.
I would agree. What else do we got here? Drop Kepler or Pham for Lourdes Gurriel. 14-team head-to-head 7x7 categories. I would drop
Kepler.
I was going to say Pham.
I would just drop Pham.
Yeah. The Statcast numbers are still really good for Pham, but he doesn't play all the time. I don't know. I would drop.
Doesn't Kepler have as many stolen bases as him this year? He might have more, actually.
Yeah, I think he has like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
From Mark, in a shallow league, would you drop Eddie Rosario or Franmil Reyes for Jared Kelenic?
Not Reyes, but Rosario I think would be fine.
I was going to say the opposite.
I mean, look, if push came to shove to get Kelenic on my roster, I'd drop either. But I agree with Chris that Rosario's would be the one I'd drop first.
Frank, I got a request for more sound drops. You did one for Joey Gallo a week or two ago. It was awesome.
You're falling in all the good times. You're still a bargain in this range.
Should I drop El Gary for Yadier Molina? Drop Gary Sanchez for Yadi. Sure.
Yes.
Fine.
What else do we got? Anything else? Where do we want to wrap up? Yeah, we need a good one.
Well, while you're looking, I've got some terrible team names for you. Are you ready? Got some music ones first. All right, ready? Jeter downs with the sickness.
All right.
Here's an obvious one. Jarren Duran, obviously.
The reflex is an only child.
Geddy Lee Rushman.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, now here's some just random ones. The Michael Kopech oil embargo. You guys might be too young for that one.
No clue.
George Kirby's Dreamland. Another obvious one.
All right.
And then here's some what's the Jeopardy category where they put two words together and they anyway, you'll see what where I'm going with this. Bobby Whit Merrifield. All right.
Sure.
And we'll finish off with
Fortune. I think they call that before and after. I don't know.
yeah,
what they
before
call
and
that.
after.
Yeah.
This is so stupid. I don't even know why I thought of this player, but JJ Bladayan Viciedo. Scott, you remember him?
I do remember Diane Viciedo. Yeah.
Chris,
That's what I spent my time doing.
All right.
you're reaching on that last one, but a few of those other ones that I do appreciate quite a bit. It's a good place to wrap up. We are officially done for today. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank.
Dribble with the curve. That's a good one.
Thank you for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.